Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George-Affleck.
And it's time for
I will survive. I will survive. Oh yeah. UnSpun.
Was that your performance?
That's why it's very popular drag queen. If you ever go to a drag queen show, almost always they will somebody will sing that one, which I
Well,
think is
because
Donna
it's
Summer. I'm not
survival.
sure.
It's the
Yes, well,
survival of the freedom to
yes.
present yourself however the hell you want. I mean, it is really quite something. The how politicized drag
Yeah.
queen story time has become. I saw the news that the Nelson Library, the Nelson BC
Mm-hmm.
Library, has postponed their drag queen story time because they're concerned about the people that might come and protest and make it into something that's not safe for children. Isn't that just wild? The people screaming safety for our children are the reason why they got to cancel it.
It's kind of all out of whack for sure. And then you think of Nelson, you think, well, Nelson, isn't that kind of a hippie place? But there is actually, you think of the Kootenays, it's kind of divided east and west to the, very conservative area and then a very left-wing area. So I think Nelson's becoming a tipping point for that issue related to drag queens doing story time. It does beg the question, and I know they've postponed it, but the question of, the kids are in the middle of this basically political fight. And is this appropriate at this point? How do we solve that problem? How do we not have kids in the middle of a political shit show?
Yeah. Way to get us an E there on Drag Queen Storytime. But you know what, George? Here's the thing that gets me. Having had Connie Smudge, who was one of the first to do Drag Queen Storytime and telling the story of finding community there for kids who don't see themselves in their classroom, who don't see themselves represented in the schoolyard, for the people who don't see themselves represented anywhere really, and seeing in a playful way. I mean, we look at Dame Edna. Like this is not new. I mean, Milton Berle used to dress in drag. I mean, this isn't new. It's become politicized in such an unhealthy way. And if you don't want to take your kid to drag queen story time, don't. Just like I'm not taking my kid to Sunday mass. I don't choose that. And I would argue that more children have been injured in a religious environment than they ever have or ever will be at a library. And this whole, we're going to talk about Ron DeSantis later, but the whole banning of books, and I mean, it's like tearing a page out of what has happened historically a generation ago of trying to marginalize certain areas of society in the name of making it a wedge issue. You've taught me about wedge issues, things that you can use to politically get your people to be like, I'm on side with that because I hate drag queens. It's like, how do you hate a drag queen? Do you also hate Disney princesses and Mickey Mouse? Because it's dress up. It's dress up. Drag queen performances are sexualized in a club. And I would argue that there are sexualized clubs that are bars where you play beer pong. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Yeah, I think there's this weird leap that people make to the sexualization of it all, which is it's not. It's either a way of life or it's something that they're passionate about. And I mean, I think it's a bit more than just dress up, but
not in the library.
Yeah, well, and I think that this still begs the question. I mean, at what point does this become so political on both sides that it's becoming so acrimonious that it's intentionally so, and therefore is it time to take a step back on both sides again? Okay, let's take a breath. Let's figure out what's going on here. Why is this a growing problem? It's obviously deeper in places like Nelson and where this is becoming a problem. Obviously, in those communities, they're not ready for this yet, for whatever reason. In other places, they are. And so you have to ask yourself, what is going on in this town that's making this possible? Is it our schooling system? Is it other stuff, discrimination that's happening in our community that's causing this? Why is there hate in our town, in our area, where it's not in somewhere else? There's something broken. And this is what would be a big red, white flag or red flag or big flag, orange flag. Red flag of
big red flag
that there's something going on that clearly, and the trucker stuff is sort of feeds into that, this anger that's out there. And you shared that Arnold Schwarzenegger video, if anybody hasn't
Wasn't
seen it,
that great?
who talks
Wasn't
about
that great?
anger, this
Yeah.
division, and this, why are people getting so angry about stuff now when we have a conversation anymore? I think that the drag queens is a provocative thing, absolutely, and kids are in the middle of it, but it begs the question about how accepting you are. Are you not accepting? Okay, why are you not accepting? Can we not have a conversation about this? That's kind of what Schwarzenegger was saying in his video, and it's certainly an issue in America, big time.
I
That's
want to
where
talk. I want to talk. I'm glad you brought up Arnold Schwarzenegger. I had the opportunity to meet him a couple of times. My former boss, when I lived and worked in Los Angeles, was in a movie with him, and I was personal assistant. So I actually had the guest book made for his private plane. Like, it's really random, but I had schnapps in his trailer with he and his personal assistant Anna and myself and my boss Pamela Reed. We sat in his trailer on the Kindergarten Cop set and had
oh yeah.
schnapps on his birthday. So I kind of got to know him a little bit, and he's just as you would imagine. I loved in this video. It's worth every second. If you haven't watched it, please do. We should tag it on our
Yeah,
unspun
it's on his feed.
podcast.com.
Yeah, it's on his Twitter
Yeah,
feed.
easy to find it. But his message, I loved his message, because first he said, I'm not perfect either, because he's certainly not. He's stepped in it, made all kinds of mistakes. He's a Republican, as most of us of our generation anyway remember Republicans to be, which aren't the Republicans we're seeing today, and we'll get to that in a sec. But his message of saying, okay, we can argue that in a second.
Yeah.
But Arnold's message was, I'm talking to you if you're going down that path of hate and anger. I want to talk to you because you can still change your mind. You can make the change to pull yourself back. And he started to talk about it. He drew a parallel between his struggles and weightlifting and what he did to his body, the pain of that change in order to enjoy the benefits of building the muscle, and really the pain of changing and taking yourself out of the intolerance and the hate and the white nationalist or racism that we're seeing spiking right now. And you mentioned that because it's LGBTQ2 plus, it's people of color, it's immigrants, it's unbelievable to watch some of what is taking place and the way Arnold puts it. And I think it's like an 8-minute video, so longer than most people's attention span. But I implore you, because he comes from a place of having walked through Auschwitz, and as an Austrian walking through Auschwitz and meeting a survivor.
His
and
father was a soldier for Austria, and how devastating it was for them when they came back. And the question of losing this war, but also losing everything else. It's very interesting, and then you can see how that might make people angry when you lose everything, and and that kind of happened between the Second World War and the First World War. Things didn't get handled properly after the First World War, and as a result, we got Hitler. So how do we improve what happened after the Second World War to ensure that didn't happen? But now, of course, we're seeing what happens with Russia and Ukraine, and hate is everywhere, and it's about not making your decisions based on hate. And it's, having been in politics, and, Melanie Mark came out, talked a lot about her in Provincially this week. She did an interview yesterday on Global TV.
I saw it. Yeah.
And she studied poli-sci, I think, at university. I'm thinking, for anybody, like, how did she not see this coming? And she's trying to say change needs to be made in politics. I'm a bit skeptical about that, but I certainly empathize with her in the torture that being in politics, and even the things you don't see in the public that I was privy to, that in a bad way, in camera meetings, and the ways I was treated quite often badly, but also sometimes the opposite, quite nicely, by the opposition. So people that were opposed to me. So but it is a game. And when I would say those kinds of things, I said it once at council, and Raymond Louis got so mad. He said, "This is not a game." I said, "This is literally a game. What you're doing right now in this chamber, you are saying these things about me to get me all riled up, because you're playing this game, and I'm not playing that game.
I'm not playing that game."
But the question comes, and okay, do you lead with hatred? Do you lead with anger? Do you if you're like somebody like Melanie Mark, how she leaves because she wants to change it on the outside. it's harder to change things on the outside than on the inside in politics. You know, I'm sitting here with you doing this, and I do other stuff behind the scenes related to politics. But, you know, being in politics, if you want to make changes, it's better to be in the house than out of the house.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
for sure. Before we leave the subject of intolerance and hate, I'm just going to point out that as of the time that we're recording this on Thursday, March 9th, on the 10th, on Friday at 9:30 a.m., after 7 years since the first ridiculously disgusting email was sent to me by my online harasser, he is entering a guilty plea in a BC provincial court at 9:30 a.m. on March 10th. So fighting for the things you believe in, I feel I feel it. I'm looking forward to being in the same room with this man after what he has put me and my family and my friends and my colleagues through. And I also want to see laws change. So I kind of, I certainly have never been through what Melanie Mark has been through. I am not an Indigenous woman. I'm an entitled white woman. But at the same time, I feel like there are many reasons why I should just absolutely not try and hold this person to account, but I am. And I hope that she continues on her journey. And anybody watching or listening right now, if you find yourself in a situation and everybody tells you it won't work, keep fighting. Because just like Arnold Schwarzenegger said, like, my muscles feel stronger now. And I feel like I'm going to look him in the eye. And it's funny because I can tell you this, I'm not going to say this obviously in court, but of my victim impact statement that I'll be reading in the courtroom tomorrow, I only had 3 words taken out. You want to know what those 3 words were? Any guesses?
No, you go ahead.
Shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you if you would picket drag queen story time. Shame on you if you would come after anybody online. Anybody. Shame on you to come after George-Affleck for speaking his mind. Shame on you for screaming freedom while telling somebody else to shut up.
I could give it sometimes to get as much as I could take it, but
you don't give harassment, George. You don't give harassment. There's a difference
lie.
between saying exactly. Yeah. So there is that. Let's speak about not lying, but a couple of things we got to get to here. Pay transparency. Let's just jump into this because we're talking how different it is for men and women. The BC government introducing some pay transparency legislation to try and make businesses show the difference. About 17% is the difference apparently.
But you're saying between women and men, right? The glass ceiling or whatever it's called. Yeah, I think that's interesting. I just feel like my immediate reaction was like, what are they doing now against business? Because as a business owner, you always kind of feel like this government provincially is on the attack to us, you know, that they're certainly taxing us way more than we ever were. You don't really feel like they're on your side provincially. And so my immediate reaction to that was, what's going on? And then of course you find out what it's about and you go, okay, well, you know, it's voluntary and all those things, but I still am always worried about things that relate when government gets intrusive into business. And I know that there's a definite disparity, like that we need to deal with this. You know, it's much worse in the States, I think, than here, but I got an idea. That pay gap for sure is a problem.
Want to know what my mushy middle suggests?
What's that?
I suggest that the pay gap is transparent and businesses do show the difference for the exact same job between men and women, because the difference is about 17% on average. Certainly a generalized statement. It's on average. Some places pay exactly the same. Some are far more than 17%. My suggestion would be in the areas where there is any discrepancy in pay equity, that you simply just take that percentage and make it equal. Don't add to it. Just give the dudes a pay cut. They can live like a woman for a while. It'd be great. Can take a little taste of what we've been dealing with.
It's hard to run a business, and if you're talking about a salaries in hundreds of thousands, that's, you know, I mean, it depends on the business. No. I just think it's, you know, that there's better ways in some. I mean, transparency is one thing, but I think that education and helping business, I think that, I don't know, I don't feel like I feel like mine. I mean, I'm not even, I'm old now, I suppose.
Hey,
it's not something.
Careful,
it's not something,
there, mister. Careful there.
I'm getting up there, but I feel like I never understood this whole concept of why you would underpay a woman compared to a man. I think I look at the staff I've hired over the years. It's never It's never a thing. In fact, most of
It's
who hire
almost
is
it's
women, but
almost
certainly,
a room full of women, and I don't know a more powerful, capable woman than your partner Amanda. And I'm not saying
yeah,
that because she's sitting over your shoulder. But
yeah,
okay, but talking about okay, from pay equity, I'm kind of going backwards here, but let's talk about the living
mhm.
wage thing going away in the city,
Yeah.
right? Like paying the living wage. What was the living wage set at, George, when it
Well,
was,
that was when I
was it
was
2015
there. Well, I think at first it was, when I it was
or
because it
whatever?
happened when I was there. It was like yes, 18 or 16 or somewhere like that.
Yeah,
I think one of the challenges with that one, which I was always uncomfortable with, was that it was included contractors, and again, going to business and making businesses have to include that in their proposals, while also
right.
asking them to make sure the bids are the lowest. So it's a certain challenge there. And again, it's like intrusion into my operations as a business owner, not mine, but
Right.
so how much is government getting involved in how I run my business? I mean, we live in a market economy, for God's sakes. And so I think that this part, the ABC party, which is obviously pro-business, and it's the first pro-business party, government we've had in Vancouver since 2008.
Yeah.
They saw that as an anti-business. It wasn't so much the city hall, because city hall pays well and above the living wage based on that. So it was really an attack on the contractors that were brought in, and as opposed to the staff at city hall. So I think they saw that as a give to the business community, just like their latest tax that they've announced yesterday, which,
Okay, but wait, you
yeah,
got a story there. Explain the
that's
tax first. So this is a tax break for businesses on the property tax, right?
right. So one of the challenges that this came thanks to the province changing some of the rules, but one of the challenges in, I think, any market, but certainly in Vancouver, where they have this thing called land lift. So if you're on a piece of property that has a potential or zoned to be 5 times or 10 times higher than the actual building, you get taxed on the future. You get taxed on
Highest,
the
best.
air, the highest and best use. And so I'm on one of those pieces of property here on Broadway in Ontario. And my tax is actually higher than my rent. So it's frustrating. But so I saw this, I'm like, oh great. I went through the thing because it's very small. I was looking on my phone, and I went through 9 Broadway, 9 East Broadway, 11 Broadway. And I went, what? And my building's not in there. And it's like literally every building around me is. It's like, hey, wait a minute, ABC Vancouver, you have to get me. What's happening here? So, and it's
It's
funny because I
personal
said to you,
now.
I said it's personal now. But then I sent you a text telling you that. I'm like, the terrible thing is, I was in City Hall for 8 years. I actually don't know who I'm supposed to call about this. It's not clear in the report. What am I? Because I think it's an oversight. Is it too late? The data, it has to be in by the end of March. The owner of the building has to submit it, which for me, that's going to be a challenge because the owner is very, very difficult to work with. And so I have to get them to fill out the forms that for a
Because
building
they
that
don't
is
care.
not even, yeah, they don't
Yeah.
care. And
No.
so
Because they
anybody
just
who's in
pass it
the,
on to you, right?
exactly. And the bank below, who they don't care. I'm like, the bank has money, and I'm going, I'll take the cash. So it's like, oh man, I immediately could empathize with the general taxpayers for a moment, because I usually can, having been at City Hall, but I was like, oh damn, who am I supposed to call? Who am I supposed to reach out to? Is there like this is such a new policy, and I mean, I guess I call the tax people, obviously I can phone I'll obviously contact one of the city councilors and say, hey, you pass a report, and I did say draft on it, so draft list. So I think there's potential there. But I'm like definitely feeling for the people of Vancouver right now, when they come and feel frustrated by City Hall, when they feel like they've been neglected, and they don't know who to talk to, and how do I fight City Hall? Because that's what I feel like I got to do right now. I
Yeah,
want this
no
tax
kidding.
break.
Hey, talking about City Hall, I'm going to throw this one in as well. I'm not sure if you saw it, but Brad West, we got to, we need a weekly Brad West shout out. We should have a sounder every time we
Yeah.
mention the mayor of Port Coquitlam. But he was talking about their spring cleanup, their services of
Mhm.
large appliances and furniture and whatnot that you can use
Up to
to
5
come and right
large
to pick up.
pieces.
I mean,
Yeah.
why do we not have that in Vancouver? It's in Delta, it's in
Mhm.
Burnaby,
We
it's in
do,
Poco, do we?
kind of. It's not
No, because I've been
promoted, but
complaining about crap in my laneway for
really,
months. I've
I would
reported it to
complain to a
311.
counselor. Call a
All
counselor.
of our,
Call Frank,
okay.
or call I don't know, call the counselors. I know that there's a budget set aside in the council, uh in the budget that's set aside for that kind of random pickup in alleys, especially downtown. People will drive down and they'll throw their stuff in alleys of
They throw their
wherever in
shit
the
everywhere.
city,
Yeah.
and
It's
wherever there's
impeding the
dumpsters.
laneway. Yeah, but
Yeah,
this
so
is where,
you should email there is a budget, there is a line item in the budget. Imagine there
but
is a line item in the budget
imagine, but wouldn't it be
for
great?
this.
Because in Toronto, when I lived in Ontario,
Yeah.
you could put your stuff on a street corner on a Sunday. No word of lie, any Sunday. You put a refrigerator on the street corner on a Sunday, and within 2 days, it would be picked up. And oftentimes somebody in the neighborhood would claim it, junk it,
Right.
take it, sell it, do it, what, like
Yeah, yeah.
upcycle it, whatever. But it was part of the process. You would just, mind you, we didn't have a green bin. We didn't have green bins here in Vancouver, and they had green bins in Toronto, which I thought was crazy. Like for
My
years we had that green bin out there, and I came back to Vancouver. I'm like, where do I put my food stuff? And they're like, in the garbage. Okay, that's
Oh,
weird.
really? So we
Yeah.
have those now though.
Yeah, yeah,
So
but they were very forward thinking
yeah.
is my point. So
Oh,
maybe
I see.
Toronto is
Huh.
just that much ahead. I wish the
I can
city would
I
embrace
think
these things.
yeah, because I think you can't change certain human nature. I in my strata building, I'm the treasurer on the strata, and this is a conversation almost every year that comes up because we
Mhm.
have a line item for the exact same thing. There's a P1 level where there's an area where just dump your crap there. Like don't like because if we don't because we are I mean my experience is when if we didn't have this and it costs us I think it's like $1,500 every 2 months or something where we have
Right.
the dump company come when we didn't have it people would just be stuffing their garbage like their furniture under stairs and take it up to a different stairwell like hiding it everywhere and you're like oh for God's sakes they
There's a
just really didn't.
table in the lobby.
Yeah, you're like, that's not, So we decided just to budget this in and say, we're just going to take this stuff, just put it down in P1. It's fine. We'll take care of it for you. We understand you're moving out or you don't want to, most people don't have trucks to take the stuff I always call it Thunderdome,
The tra- the
the
transfer station
like if
or the dump.
anybody's ever had a chance
Oh,
to go there, it is. And if you've ever seen the movie Thunderdome, like Beyond Thunderdome, it's like down, 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 I go down, 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 because there's like these big tractors moving around. There's like stinks, and there's like people wearing masks and gear, and you get out of your car and you feel like what's happening? You're throwing your stuff in this giant bin.
and they're
It's
like, yeah, everything in there.
yeah, yeah. It's
Okay. And
really
then they weigh
it's
your
such a
car,
I
and you
know I
pay
love
for
going
how
there.
much
It's like
lighter your car is.
that's
They weigh
right,
you on the
that's
way
right,
in and they weigh you on the way out,
that's
and
right.
it's cheap. But you got to
It
have a
is.
vehicle to do
You
that.
gotta
And
have a
I'm
vehicle.
sorry, but it'd be really interesting to see the hub community on their bikes trying to drop off the couch that they no longer want. Can we talk a little bit about, first and foremost, before we go to federal politics, because there's a
Mhm.
lot there too, what's the hotel thing that just moved?
Well, it's a report about how I'm lacking in hotel. Vancouver has the most expensive hotels, and so there's a few new hotel developments coming, but we can't build hotels fast enough. And this was always my challenge when I was there. There was no hotels that came forward. We were actually closing down hotels, and certainly during the pandemic, we converted a bunch of hotels into rooming houses and things like that. And I'm like, what happens when the pandemic's over? We need places this is a tourist city. We make a lot of money off tourists. And there's never been a real plan to build hotels. There was one change when I was there just before I finished my term in 2018, 2017, where we rezoned almost the entire downtown, like Seymour, Richards, to allow, there's a lot of strata buildings, including mine, actually, it turns out, that were, and so I think I recused myself on that one. But we passed to permit those buildings to be turned into hotels. So there's one of them's already done. I think along Nelson and Seymour, it's turned into a hotel now. So it's a real problem in our city when we talk about we always are building office buildings, but we're not building enough hotels for a city that really relies on tourism. And I think people when they come here, no offense, if you end up having to stay in some other town that's not downtown Vancouver, you're like, where am I? Why am I way out here?
Yeah,
But it's not Vancouver. I
no.
was always saying, I don't know if you saw the numbers that they're predicting for cruise ships. It's a new huge record this year, like 1.3 million visitors up. Like it's crazy considering just a couple of years ago, US was threatening to stop cruise ships coming here.
Yeah. They
So it's
need
good
us,
news.
and it's beautiful here. Exactly, exactly. That
Yeah.
is good news. Crazy times to be Justin Trudeau with the CSIS report. The Sam Cooper was on with Linda and I on last week's show, Steel and Vance.
Oh,
If you
really?
did
I
not
missed
see
that.
that, go to
Oh, yeah.
checkmedia.ca. Watch last week's. The segments are all there. So if you just want to watch Sam Cooper, we talked for 14 minutes, and he was unbelievable. Like the stuff that he referenced. He talked money laundering too in the Vancouver model and how
Mm-hmm.
that
The
latest
Vancouver model.
thing was
Yeah.
thrown out of
Sad truth.
court. Right, but like the kingpin guy, no
Yeah.
charges brought because I mean it's just so and the reasons behind that. But Sam
Hmm.
Cooper talking about this, what's been leaked to him about the Chinese government's interference in our elections, federal, provincial, municipal, kind of non-specific, but certainly put the federal government on the hot seat, and Justin Trudeau basically going, "Oh, nothing to see here. Yes, of course we knew, but not necessarily for the public to know." And then public pressure, and then it was like, "Well, we'll look into it." Now it's like, "Okay, we're going to bring in independent special rapporteur." It's causing a
When,
little.
yeah, you know, we talked about this last week, and I said, just do the inquiry. Just, dude, it's too late. It doesn't. If people don't believe you, it's when they smell a rat, there's a rat. I mean, it's like, come on, there's something going on here. If there's not something going on, at least do a public process so we can see transparently that there's nothing to see here. But
Right.
no, you know, you're a politician. Nothing to see here is like, okay, that means
Our house is on fire.
Something to see here.
Yeah. House on fire. Look over there. Everybody,
Yeah,
look.
look
What's
over
that?
there, look over there.
Yeah.
Spin.
Speaking of look over there, spin. Got to mention Tucker Carlson, Fox News, with this Dominion lawsuit. The text messages that he has sent, that Tucker Carlson sent, absolutely prove that he is 100% putting on a show every night to his 13.5 million viewers nightly on his program. He said he absolutely hates Trump's guts. He thinks he's, what did he call him? A wrecker. Sorry, now I can't remember the actual quote. But then there's
he's still doubling
video
down though. He's still
he's doubling down
on the terrible side. Like he's going to town now with more craziness.
7 minutes, because I monitor all the news stations, because I've just got to make sure I'm watching all the things. Don't want to live in a silo. And he spent 7 minutes on Wednesday night of his show, the first 7 minutes, the meatiest top story bit, because he's got the 44,000 hours of January 6th video, because Kevin McCarthy, it was part of him getting the speaker role, was to give it exclusively to Tucker Carlson first, because apparently he's the most important thing in America. But he spent that first 7 minutes talking about how no Capitol Police officers actually died on January 6th at the Capitol. Like, I just sat there and felt so sick to my stomach, because they actually didn't have their hearts stop beating in the moment of this. And it was just disgusting that isn't.
I think Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey used to say the same thing about some of their animals. No animal has ever died in the ring at the circus. It's,
well said, George.
I think this is madness, and some of the videos I've seen on Twitter, they're obviously faked. They're like, their audio doesn't connect. That's that guy. Like, he's shouting at them. I'm like, I don't think that audio was done post. It's some of the weird stuff out there, but what's interesting though is January 6th is having an impact on Trump in a negative way, and so is all this stuff. I mean, DeSantis is
not Santos, DeSantis.
DeSantis. He's pulling ahead of Trump now. He's obviously running for president. He's out there working the states that matter at this point, and he's going to do it. It looks like. So,
did you hear what he said about Novak Djokovic? Yeah, he did.
Well, I mean,
he used to believe in vaccines too, and now he's like, yeah. Only
he jumped on the bandwagon. I mean, the story, there's a really good, if you listen to New York Times podcast, The Daily, they did one on, I think it was yesterday, so it'll be Wednesday, about DeSantis, and it was interesting how he jumped early on. As you remember, back in Florida was the first state to go, nope, no rules, no mask, and then he took on Disney. So he definitely got his finger on a pulse of that America. I think he's figured out a way to maximize the opportunity there. I don't know how evil he is or anything like that. I think he will be the next president of the United States, to be honest. I put money on that at this point.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. And if Biden runs again, I think so. I don't think I just can't. I don't know. The momentum is definitely in his favor, and it's just about raising money at this point. So we'll see. But
you're the Bill Maher of Canada, and Bill Maher disagrees with you.
Well,
Bill Maher says if Biden runs again, he wins, because while DeSantis can win Florida, you have to win elsewhere. And there are places that have shown them, the states that have shown themselves to be more purple than MAGA red.
Yeah.
So that red meat MAGA base, which is what DeSantis is trying to pull away from Trump, because let's face it, nobody'd be more dangerous as president of the United States than a second term Trump.
Yeah, that is true. Although DeSantis is against, I think, abortion and stuff too, isn't he? All those things. It'll be
For
interesting
sure.
with
He's
women
doing
vote,
he's ripping
the
a page out
female
of all of
vote
it. Yeah.
will be what, and the ethnic vote will be where he gets it. I think I'll listen to what Michael Moore says. He's been more right than anybody on every election.
His Substack's really interesting. Oh, we're at 30 minutes. You got to follow us on Twitter at
George_Affleck.
That was really good. We should save that as a sounder. At Jody Vance, Jody with a Y, at Jody Vance on Twitter. Twitter very busy these days in a wild way, but we'll meet you there. Make sure you tell your friends. Unspunpodcast.com is where you find us online. Click, like, subscribe, etc. Right, George?
Etc. 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 Goodbye.
Ciao.